Hello everyone, and welcome back to another figure review. Today we're taking a look at the long-awaited S.H.Figuarts Dragon Ball Z Full Power Frieza. With this release, we now have every form of Frieza that has ever appeared in the anime, and I'm going to go ahead and get this out of the way. This is an absolutely amazing figure in hand, and I've had a blast posing him around to gather material for this review. In my opinion, there's one or two gripes to be had, but the amount of good that this figure brings to the table vastly outweighs the personal issues that I have. So, with that said, let's get into the review. Starting off with the packaging, Full Power Frieza can be seen in a pose looking like he's finally reached 100% full power. The color scheme of Frieza is nicely complemented with the pink background that can be seen inside the box and in the manga style paneling. The right side of the box has that image of Frieza wrapping around, as well as continues the paneling from the front of the box. The back side of the box gives us a look at what all comes bundled with Frieza, such as his death saucers, an extra faceplate for the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku, as well as gives us ideas for posing Frieza around. Here's a look at the left side of the box. A quick look at the top. And bottom to round out the packaging. So, I absolutely love the attention to detail Tamashii put into this one, and Frieza looks like he's been ripped right out of episode 98 of Z. He's caught a case of scoliosis and cranked his gains up to 11. Frieza's sculpt perfectly encapsulates that 100% full power that he boasted about, and hits just as hard as that first gut punch that Frieza delivers to Goku right after powering up. Much like the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku, his whole body is covered in battle damage from head to toe, and in the same breath he's missing line work in those scratches. But that is not a deal breaker. If a person really wanted to, they could grab a Gunpla pen and fill those lines in themselves. Outside of his final and golden forms, the purple is consistent with all other iterations of Frieza that we've received from this wave of Namek Saga figures. Veins are popping out all over the figure, and he's got a nice bit of blue shading in key areas to really define those muscles, and even right down his backside. Good on you, Tamashii, you didn't forget the back this time around. As for the head sculpts and their execution, I feel like they're up there with Mecha Frieza's. I do feel that they are a tiny bit smaller than they should be, but that could be an illusion based off of all the mechanical parts of Mecha Frieza's head. Plus, this line doesn't scale 100% either, so that's also something to keep in mind as well. Another point of detail I really appreciate, and yet despise at the same time about this figure, is the fact that Frieza is missing part of his tail, which shows consistency with the source material, but my own personal bias wants him to have a full tail. And I think that's in part due to the fact that most of the video games that we see this transformation in has Full Power Frieza with a full tail unless he's taken significant damage, like in the Tenkaichi series. Speaking of, who here has had the chance to play Sparking Zero? If you have, let me know down below what you think of it. Me personally, I absolutely love it. Anywho, speaking of tails and head sculpts, let's dive into the accessories a little more. Right out of the box, Frieza is going to come with 4 head sculpts in total, 5 sets of hands for a total of 10 interchangeable hands, an extra set of feet that are clenched, his 2 depth saucers or Kienzan discs, and an extra faceplate for the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku that I'm sure many of you have and are going to be displaying alongside Full Power Frieza here. For the heads we get the default smirking face, a teeth gritting face perfect for powering up or delivering a devastating blow, a shouting face that screams he's the most powerful being in the universe, and another teeth gritting face that looks more annoyed than anything. Not including the 2 fists that come attached, we get 2 clenched hands, 2 different sets of splayed out hands, your default set, and ones where you can peg the depth saucers into, and 2 for blocking attacks or retaliating with ki blasts. Now for the feet, they can be a bit tricky to swap between. If the peg isn't lined up properly, it'll give you a bit of grief. The best results I've had is making sure the peg is pointed straight down, and then try pegging in the foot. Next we have the depth saucers. To use these, all you'll have to do is switch out Frieza's hands for the splayed out hands with the hole in the center, and then peg the saucer in. For me, they do peg in fairly easily, but do not force it if you find yourself struggling. If you're running into that issue, soak the hand in some hot water that's been in the microwave for about a minute, then try attaching the saucer again. Be aware that if the peg comes out of the saucer, it's not the end of the world. You can easily peg them back into the saucer and it's good as new. And if you're wondering if you could peg any other blast effect into Frieza's hand, you can. You just have to have the peg inside the hand, and you can plug in the 10 times Kamehameha that you see here. Looks pretty good. Before we move on to the articulation section, here's a quick look at the extra faceplate we get for Goku. Alright, it's time for articulation, everybody's favorite part of the review. So, Frieza here is on a brand new sculpt, The only thing I can think of that he borrows conceptually from his predecessors is the little jewel here in the center. That comes straight from the Mecha Frieza. It may not be the same size, but the fact it's on a hinge is the concept, anyways, is borrowed from that figure. So the biggest thing I was worried about with this figure was the shoulders. I wasn't exactly sure how this would articulate, given how gargantuan they are. Were they going to be like metal coolers or Mecha Friezas based off of, what we've had in the past? I wasn't sure how that was going to look, but honestly, all they did was just make it to where the hinge goes up to the jewel and does not cross into it to break up the mold, which I am super happy that's how it's done. When you look at the original 4th form Frieza, the way it is built in, the hinge itself is white. And so it breaks up the contrast of the jewel, or pad, whatever you want to call it, on his shoulder. So it just looked really goofy. They fixed it with the subsequent releases of the second one for Resurrection F, and then the one that we got just recently as a general release for the Namek Saga. But anywho, I am extremely pleased with this figure. They did a great job, and we'll talk about it as we get into it. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. So let's get to the actual part of the section that everybody cares about. So starting with the head and working our way down, Frieza is going to be on a double ball peg. Yes, not a ball hinge, but a double ball peg. So you would think that means Frieza has some really nice articulation, right? When it comes to looking up, well, maybe not so much, but maybe looking to the, no, not tilting side to side either. But when you start using the neck, you get some really good range out of Frieza. Looking down buries that chin into the chest, and then looking up is also really good. You do get some gapping here. It's not as bad as, 24,000 Vegeta, but it's pretty good. You do get some side to side, and it's really good. Now, getting the arms. Frieza is going to be on a double ball peg, or not double ball peg, a ball and socket system that allows him to rotate a full 360. The arms themselves do go out 180 degrees, almost. Just based off of how the arms are designed and how they curve, it doesn't exactly look like 180 degrees, but it does a really good job of it. I would be very careful, though, doing that, because you do take the chance of potentially scuffing or doing some paint transfer to the chest region if you're not careful. So, with that said, the butterfly joints on Frieza are also really good. You can get those arms to cross with each other, no problem. Or, excuse me, the fist to touch. Now, if you want the arms to cross, you can pull the arms out just a tad, then attempt that same maneuver again, and voila. Very good. We do get your standard bicep swivel. We do get double jointed elbows. And we get wrist pegs that are ball hinges. So, again, like with any ball hinge, you got to get the ball hinge in the position you want to get the maximum amount of range you want. Whenever you're wanting to bring the fist in, out, whatever. Now, this is good, right? That was my biggest point of contention. My new point of contention is the forearm. It does not have a swivel system like Mecha Frieza, and that is a bit of a bummer to me. It works, don't get me wrong, but when you look at pictures of Frieza, even in this form, this piece is in the back, right? So the forearm would be back here, but just the way he's designed here to make him look jacked, swole, what have you, this is now, in, like he's ready to throw some fists, know what I'm saying? So, that's a nitpick. That's a minor gripe. It's not a deal breaker. Obviously, this figure is, I love it. But this here, it would have benefited from it, okay, just a little bit, but it's okay. It'll work. Okay, now for the chest, as I mentioned, this is on a little hinge that does move ever so slightly, and so that helps whenever you start doing poses with Frieza where you're leaning him back First of all, let's get this arm out of the way so we can do this. This is kind of tricky, just based off of the way that the chest articulates. I hate it. There we go. You kind of have to bend him from the back. Giggity. And so that's what that looks like whenever you bend Frieza back up top of the torso. And then whenever you crunch him forward, that's what that looks like. So be careful doing that because this jewel is painted and you do take the chance of doing some paint transfer. It may be hard to see if I get the light just right. There we go. You can kind of see where I've already done an oopsie. Got some little paint transfer in there. I was going to take some nail polish remover to it to kind of clean that up, but that's not the only thing that's painted in there. You got a little bit of blue shading, you know, the accents. It's right there in the center of his ab section. So if you were to crunch forward a little too, or not, excuse me, if you were to crunch forward a little too hard and scuff it, and then you want to clean that up, you're also going to take that shading out. So you're going to have to live with it, unfortunately. Actually, it's kind of like bruising. That kind of works. I like that. I don't like scratching my figures, but it works for, you know, the aesthetic that they're going for, him being battle scarred. So, with that said, there really is no pivot up top. There's no rotation. If there is, it's very sketchy. I would be very careful of that. And a lot of that, though, is going to be down here at the waist. You want to do all your bending, leaning, whatever. I mean, do the leaning up here, for sure. But I'm talking about leaning side to side. And then, yeah. When you crunch forward, this looks a lot better. And then when you lean back, I mean, you can basically break Frieza in half if you want to. Don't do it, though. Just the range of motion that this guy gets is really stellar. There's one other point of contention. If your waist section is extremely tight on you, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if yours is. Mine was not, but just be cautious when trying to, you know, move him for the first time out of the box. This system that they have in here, how this pegs into the waist and the lower half of his abdomen, is very thin. Like, you can kind of see it. It's thin, and you can kind of see where it snaps together. I would not try cranking on this really hard if I were you, just based off of that. Sure, you would have the more accurate Frieza after he gets cut in half by his Death Saucer, but I don't think you'd be very happy about not being able to put your figure back together. So keep that in mind. But again, the range of motion down here is beautiful, perfect, I love it. Let's move on. For the legs, Frieza here is able to kick out 90 degrees. Actually, probably a little bit more. Yeah. And then because this here is a softer piece of plastic, thank you, Tamashii, by the way, for doing that, Frieza can kick out 180 degrees both ways. This is very nice. So that being a softer piece of plastic is very necessary for whenever you start trying to get Frieza to do the splits. You do get a little bit of, what's it called? Little awkwardness down here, but it works. Frieza can almost kick out 180 degrees perfectly, but because of this, how he can do this right here, he is able to, I'm going to move the tail up just a tad, he's able to do this number and almost hold it. I think he actually can. He can Jean-Claude Van Damme it, as Daredevil 19 would say. It's very nice. It's kind of goofy looking, but it works. So, with that said, you do have upper... Ooh, I'm so sorry. Let me get that fixed. You do have an upper thigh swivel. There we go. Upper thigh swivel. Double jointed knees. And we already pointed out these little ankle rockers. They're very nice, but tilting down is good. Tilting up is really good. And then, obviously, you saw the side to side. It's really good. So, final... Oh, no, not final verdict. Tail is on a ball hinge. Pegs into the softer buttocks. And does a great job of just rotating around, articulating. You got to fight the hinge to get the tail to where you want it to turn. But that's no biggie. That is no biggie at all. So, final verdict here on Mecha Frieza, on Full Power Frieza. I love it. It is a absolutely stellar figure. I fall more in love with it the more I pose it around and have fun with it. And he definitely goes well paired with the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku. Goku, you're making me look bad. But yeah, I'll get him out of the way. He's just going to fall again. I don't really feel like fighting his feet. But yeah, final verdict. You're going to have fun posing this guy around. I cannot stress that enough. You're not going to be disappointed with how this guy performs. Just keep in mind the few areas that I mentioned about, possible paint transfer and the lower waist section possibly being a tolerance issue if you go to cranking on him a little too hard. Other than that, solid release. Let's move on to the comparisons, and then we'll close out with our closing thoughts. For the comparisons, here's Full Power Frieza next to Final Form Frieza, Mecha Frieza, Metal Cooler, and the legendary Super Saiyan Son Goku. So for my closing thoughts on Full Power Frieza, this figure is damn near perfect. Outside of the few personal gripes I had throughout this review, I genuinely believe that this figure is definitely worthy of your hard-earned cash. The joints are super solid, the paint apps are perfect, and the accessories are on point for what we get. Sure, a person could argue for a sliced in half body, or more head sculpt since we only got 4 in total, and Frieza definitely has more expressions in this form than what we got. It sucks though, because I can't think of any other figure Tamashii could release on Premium Bandai where they could bundle an extra head sculpt with it. But this is Tamashii we're talking about, and they'll find ways to slip in an accessory too where they can. Outside of that, to be honest with y'all, there really isn't anything else negative I can think of when it comes to this figure outside of it being a Premium Bandai release. It absolutely could have been a general release like Goku given how iconic Frieza is as a character, and I think it would have sold just as well, if not better, had it been easier for the public to obtain. And who knows, maybe that was a gamble that Tamashii just wasn't willing to take, as 85 USD is quite a bit. But this is a brand new sculpt, and I imagine like the general releases of our umpteenth Goku and Vegeta, the revenue they generate here will be used to create new molds in the future. And I failed to mention that this is a Vietnamese release, which honestly in hindsight is not beginning to matter anymore. I say that because the 3.0 Teen Gohan that I've yet to review had tolerance issues, and he was made in China. But enough about that. If you're wanting this Frieza to display next to the legendary Super Saiyan Goku, or round out all of your Frieza forms, he's an easy pickup. I have had fun posing the figure around, and it's got the childhood nostalgia in overdrive. So final verdict, get him while you can. He's honestly worth a markup if you didn't snag him on P Bandai, and I assure you that you're not going to regret this one. And that's going to bring us to the end of the review. I want to thank you, the viewer, for making it to the end. If you haven't already, kindly hit the like button and subscribe as it helps me out and keeps the channel growing. Plus, I've got other reviews up and more to come. I'd also love to hear your thoughts on this release. Do you love it? Hate it? I'd love to hear it all. But as always, this has been Elite Reviews, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.